This episode of The Unstarving Musician is powered by Bandzoogle, helping musicians around the world create professional artist websites. I somewhat recently moved my own artist website over to Bandzoogle. You can see it at urbanzo.com. I'm a longtime WordPress user and website designer, so trying a system like Bandzoogle was kind of a big deal to me, but I know that WordPress ain't that easy to learn, and lots of musicians have no interest in learning how to use WordPress, but will try something purported to be easy to use. Well, it doesn't get much easier than Bandzoogle. I've talked about the numerous features they have at the front end of other episodes, but after talking to Dave Kuhl, VP of Business Development with Bandzoogle, on this podcast in the previous episode, you should check it out, I learned about several other features that are especially interesting right now, such as crowdfunding, subscriptions, donations, and all of that without fees added. They also have tools to help you sell merch, tickets to your shows, build your email list, and more. They have support 7 days a week. So look, go to bandzoogle.com to start a 30-day free trial. You can use the promo code ROBONZO to get 15% off your first year. That's bandzoogle.com, promo code ROBONZO, ROBONZO. Let's do the show. Welcome to another episode. I am your host, Robonzo. On this podcast, I have conversation with indie musicians and music industry pros to discuss the various aspects of the independent music artist journey. The intent is to help independent music artists do more of what we love, which is, of course, make music. If you're a fan of indie music or a particular indie artist, you too may enjoy this podcast. Hey, do you want to help others find this podcast? You can do so by subscribing on Apple Podcasts or wherever you get your favorite podcasts. It really does help. The Unstarving Musician podcast is made possible through the generosity of listeners like you. One of the easiest ways to offer support is to join the Unstarving Musician community, and you can do so by going to unstarvingmusician.com and join right there on the homepage. As a member, you'll receive from me tips and lessons you can use in your music journey. And this is not just stuff coming from me and my years of experience as a gigging musician, but also from the hundreds of other musicians I've talked to as part of this project and podcast. You'll also get a free copy of the Unstarving Musician's Guide to Getting Paid Gigs ebook, and that is all free just for being part of the community. To learn more about the other ways of offering your support, please visit our sponsor page at unstarvingmusician.com/crowd sponsor. My guest is Kendall Rucks. She's into rock, and I love that. She's highly influenced by the fashion and vibe of the 70s, has roots in 80s and 90s rock, and loves living in LA. We recorded this interview on February 7, 2020. I'm recording this intro for you on March 27, 2020. And hopefully you're hearing it a mere week later in the future amidst the most unusual of times, if you know what I mean. Listening back to my chat with Kendall, I hadn't a care in the world. It was like I was playing drums, guitar, or singing for an audience. Nothing else matters. Nothing else mattered when I was listening to our conversation, so it was a nice reprieve from everything that's happening. Thanks, Kendall. She had big plans to tour this summer, including a West Coast tour, and I know that has all been put on hold, but I trust you are well, rolling with it, as the saying goes. I got to chat about a lot of good stuff with Kendall, including her music release strategy, finding and working with management and media relations teams, honing in on her brand identity, tips for you to do that too. What's so special about LA? An amazing outdoor music festival she was able to play before life changed for all of us, and putting a band together after having recorded so much music, and what they have meant to her as a songwriter. Thank you, B Squared Management, for connecting us. Thank you, Kendall, for doing your thing. Thank you guys for tuning in, so to speak. Here's me and Kendall Rucks. Are you ready again?
Yes.
All right.
Ready again.
All right. Thanks for rebooting with me after technical problems. So let's go back to the beginning. I would love to hear again. You and I were discussing, but nobody was going to get to hear it the way things were going. But we were talking about your singles. We were talking about your singles release strategy, which, again, I had observed. It looks like it's been going on 2 to 4 years now, at least, in lieu of doing albums. And you kind of shared with me what you originally hoped to do, probably still do, but the way things have sort of unfolded. Can you talk a little bit about that, please?
For sure. So, like I said, I always wanted, when I was 17, I was like, I want to release an album like Tidal by Fiona Apple. I want to release like something with just like 14 songs and a nice package and just deliver it. And at the time, I had recorded my album in Nashville, where I did get 14 songs under my belt and all of that. But the more and more I looked at music and how things were changing and what some really good influential people were telling me and letting me know, it did seem like it was kind of it didn't make sense for me to release a full package of 14 songs that I worked 2 years on just in one day. It made more sense to strategically take that music and release it over a period of time, each single, getting to promote each single, getting to push it, a video for it and content and, engaging my audience more with just content that kind of rolled out over a year, say, than just releasing something in a day and promoting it for like a month and all of that. So like I told you, I kind of also look to rap music and, how rap songs and just, the hype of just a single releasing, then a video. And it's I think we live in a society that needs stimulation and needs constant flow of content. So it's it doesn't really make sense for me, because I spend so much time working on something, to just kind of show all my cards all at once, if that makes sense. So it was a strategic idea, especially for me, because I'm starting out, to do that, to release singles rather than everything all at once. But eventually I would love, in the next coming years, and hopefully even sooner than that, to release an EP, package full of 6 songs or a package full of 12-song album, and to do that, because I still think there's something so great about an album or an EP that tells a story, that kind of from the beginning to the first song to the last song is like a thread through story.
Yeah, absolutely. And we'd also talked about part of your beginnings. You mentioned your age, you mentioned Disney and moving to California. So I'm remembering you talked about writing maybe Skin the Sun, your most current single, at 16, and at some point early on you developed a relationship with Disney, and they kind of in a way helped you get your start. You decided, you kind of knew what you wanted to do early on, but you did the Disney thing and maybe some other stuff, and ultimately realized you were going to go back to where you wanted. And was what you wanted always kind of this? You mentioned Fiona Apple. Did you always want to do something that was somewhat in the rock vein?
For sure. I always wanted to do something that I felt was, whether it was rock music or blues or even pop, I just wanted to do something that kind of was cutting edge in some way, or pushed boundaries, or kind of pissed some people off. Just some of the ways that I was writing, or it's all kind of satire for me. Just some things that I think or say, and I wanted to push boundaries. I didn't want to do the whole Disney pop happy thing, because I didn't feel that way, and I don't feel that way. And I love that about Fiona Apple and artists like Amy Winehouse, Fiona Apple, Lana Del Rey, because they just kind of speak their mind freely and shamelessly. And I always saw myself as doing something similar to that. So I always wanted to do that and be true to that.
I like it. What part of Florida are you from, by the way?
I'm from a small town called Stewart. It's near another town called Jupiter.
Oh, wow.
But it's right on the East Coast. Yeah, it's right on the East Coast, and it's a beautiful little town. It's like a little vacation town. It's really nice.
So what made me randomly ask that was, I was just now making myself a note. We wanted to bring up the Okeechobee Fest. Did I say it right? Yeah. Tell me about it. Is it your first time that you're going to be involved in it as a performer? And tell me and listeners a little bit about the festival, because I just learned about it today. I love their promo video, and it looks really cool. And tell me what you're expecting and what your history is with it.
Well, it's really crazy because my family, we are fourth generation Okeechobee natives on my dad's side. So, my sister's born there. My dad grew up there. We had a dairy farm in Okeechobee. So I have Okeechobee roots. My grandparents are there, my aunt's there, my uncle's there. And it so happened it was at Christmas dinner, and my uncle said, "Hey, Okeechobee Fest is, it's happening again, and they're having submissions. Like, you should submit for it." And I'm like, I don't know, we submit so much as artists, we submit to so many festivals, you never hear anything back. It's, whatever. But I thought, you know what? Okay, I'm going to submit to Okeechobee Fest and see what happens. And I added in there, sent my music and everything. And also, my dad had a dairy farm in Okeechobee and this and that. And they got back to me, and it really was that they loved the story and they loved the music. And it just, it all came together. It was so surprising to me because I told my uncle, I was like, no, I'm not going to submit. They're not going to get it back to me. Like, no, I'm not going to do it. But I did. And this has come of it. I'm really excited. It's the first big festival I've ever played, which is ironic because it's in Okeechobee, which, it's just where my dad's from. It's just all very ironic. Playing shows in LA, and then probably the biggest show that I've yet to play is going to be in my dad's hometown, which is a full circle. It's pretty cool, but all the other artists on the lineup, it's insane to see my name next to them. I'm really excited.
That's nice. It looks like it's going to be a blast. What are, in the time that you've been in LA, what are some of the more, I was going to say bigger shows, but what are some of the more standout shows that you've done in LA?
Gosh, LA has so many amazing venues that, just the vibe and the history of the venue just adds to the whole experience. Every show that I play at Viper Room is magical, in my opinion. Just the crowd that comes, the people, the venue, the history behind it. I love the Viper Room. I loved my release show. I had an Everybody's Girl for my single Everybody's Girl. The release part for that was at Adults Only. That's an amazing venue, and that place was packed out. The energy was insane. Hotel Cafe, there's so many different shows that I can't even pinpoint one that have been amazing. But I do have to say, probably some of my favorite shows have happened at the Viper Room, which is cool.
Yeah, that's kind of a legendary place. I've not been, but certainly it's a place I've read about. There's a lot of things that have happened there.
You need to go. It's like you could just feel it in the air. It's awesome.
I'm sure. And then something else we talked about before we decided to reboot here and start over. I'd asked you about management. You mentioned a media company, and I gathered that you've had a history of mentors from the beginning. Was your current management company and the current media company, when did they come in the picture, and what have they meant to you? And I ask from the perspective of artists that may be listening that either haven't aligned themselves with this type of help or kind of trying to figure out how to. But what have they meant to you, and anything you can share in that area would be great.
I started working with, they're called B Squared Management, and I started working with them a little over a year. And it's a team of women, and they are I can't even begin to, as an artist, you work with so many different, management and upper hand and this and that, and this guy knows this guy and he can help you here. And, at the end of the day, lots of it's BS. So to find a team of people that are really genuine, work for you and want to see you succeed and kind of will pull as many plugs as they can to make that happen is very rare. And I feel like B Squared Management is a company who does that for their artists. And from working with them, I've been introduced to so many different people. I've been invited and brought into so many different spheres and events and things that I would have never gone to before. I think we're talking right now because of them, which is amazing.
Yeah.
And they just have really introduced me and, taken that step, because it's hard. It's like, as a creative person, you create, and, the art is first and foremost, but all of the media and stuff, I'm not the best at. And that's what they do, is media and public relations and getting your name out there and getting you talking to people. So I need that kind of extra push. So they supply that, which is amazing. They're a great big company. And like I said, it's run by women. So it's just like, they're powerful. Period. They're powerful.
Well, hopefully they listen to this episode when it publishes, but you can tell them I really appreciate that I appreciate the outreach that they did, because they came to me with a short list, I guess, of their favorites, but they came to me with a short list of artists they wanted to have on the podcast, and they were I've been a little overwhelmed with trying to, I get requests from people who want to come on. There's that, and then there's just the production of the whole thing and the rest of my life. So it can be a little overwhelming from a bandwidth perspective. And I have some help. I could use more. But anyway, they were really nice about, I said, can you go to this page on my website? And they just individually for each artist, they made us a nice submission. And it's really cool that you're the second. Yeah, you're the second from their roster that scheduled with me. There may be a third one that has two, but everybody that I made time to look at personally looked really great, yourself included. So tell them I said thanks.
Yeah, they only take on, they're very, I wouldn't say picky, but they're very, they have to believe in the artists that they take on,
Sure.
which, is even better, because there's so many agencies and managements who will just take on whoever, and, nobody really gets connected to the art, but they're very connected to the music and the art and the artwork and photos and all of that. So having them on my team has been very, very beneficial and very rewarding.
That's cool. Now, I might have misunderstood, but did you say that there's a second company that works with you as well to help with some of this stuff, or is it just B Squared Management currently?
For sure. I just recently started working. It's called Gramophone Media. Mm-hmm. And again, they're a company as well with many amazing connections, kind of does the same PR thing, and really pushes that, really helps with, when I have a single coming out, and they can connect with like-minded, podcasts like yourself or wherever, and we can get connected and make stuff together. So it's the same thing basically as B Squared. It's just another little fire that they have as well, and they're amazing. But I recently started working with them, and I really enjoy it as well.
And did they? This can be for one or both of the, B Squared and Gramophone. But did they find you, or did you find them? How did it work?
I think I sought them out. If I'm not too, no. I think they sought me out. It's kind of confusing the timeline of how it happened, but I think they found me, and again, they kind of have a roster of artists that are very similar to me in the sense of kind of what we're doing or what they look for in their artists that they want to promote and push, that, kind of thing. So I think they're the ones who found me first when I think about it. But second, I got the email or the message from them, I remember just going through their roster and going through what they stand for as a company and all of that, and being super excited. And really a company that I feel like I could align myself with.
Beyond one thing I've heard both from the artist and the artist management side about developing a relationship like what you have with B Squared is as an artist to be, to put out really great material, to be, everything you can possibly be, just be really, great. Because I'm sure part of that was the large part of it is they need you to be great so that they can market you.
For sure.
As an artist, are there things beyond that you would share with an artist friend or anyone who might be asking you, what can I do? Let's say you had heard or seen someone and thought, wow, you think they have what it takes, even though you're not an artist management person per se, but what advice could you give to them to help them, maybe make the connection and get linked up like you would have?
I think brand identity is one of the biggest things that artists don't really talk about, but it's so important, I believe. You can be talented, you can have great music and great lyrics, but if you don't really have an identity that separates you from the others, you really don't have a product, if that makes sense.
Sure.
I think attracting an amazing team like B Squared, it takes somebody, it takes time. It took me a little bit of time to find out, okay, what's my brand identity? What is the thing when people see me? What do I want them to feel? Color schemes, a color palette, it gets very deep. But I think having that brand identity separates you from other artists in the game, having a strong sense of, when you come to my shows, this is what you're going to see. You're going to feel this. You're going to, it's not just up for interpretation. I think up for interpretation is kind of a dangerous thing, especially in 2020 as an artist. You need to be bold and have a set identity where you separate yourself from the crowd. And I think companies like B Squared look for artists like that.
So yeah, this makes total sense. And I have heard an artist or two on the podcast talk a little bit about this. I have also gathered that it's hard for some artists, and there's always this point at the beginning, right, where it's hard for all of us. You're like, yeah, you put the question out there perfectly, the one you asked yourself, what do I want? What do I want to put out there? What do I want people to perceive? What was the process for you to decide what that something was? And I guess to sort of ask it in the way that I did the last question, if you met someone that you're like, wow, really talented, it seems like they have everything they need, they just need to get this brand identity thing down, and you saw them struggling, what tips could you offer, and what worked for you?
I think just looking at things that kind of like spike your senses, if that makes any sense. Like, I have always been in love with the era of the 60s and 70s. I always have loved the dress and the colors and the photos of that era. Something about it, nostalgia and all of that is something that's always resonated with me really strongly. So I'm like, okay, I resonate with this. I love to dress in that era and in that time. How can I take that? And it's already fused in my personality just in different ways, but how can I capitalize on that and, add that to my brand? Because I know there's millions of people who love that era as well. But it's also, there's some people who love futuristic things and love, all of just like the visual elements and the times and eras and colors and all of that. It's kind of just like getting in touch with what you are naturally drawn to and colors you like, and like I said, eras you like, or even textures or tones or just different things that can add to that identity. All of that, I feel like, my only advice I think would just be to get in touch with that. I think everybody has a leaning to what they like, or, you see something and you like it, or you save it, or you have it hanging in your room on the wall. Like, just different artwork and different things, I think has helped me. I'm a huge Milo Manara fan, who's an artist, and he draws like Italian erotica and all of this stuff. But looking at some of the things that he's drawn and the colors that he's used, like, totally goes into how I present myself and dress, because it's something that inspires me. So I think my only advice would be to just get in touch with what moves you. And, once you get in touch with that, no matter if it's liked by the masses, you owning that will already be individual in a way and unique for you. And that's what I think brand identity is. It's just getting in touch with something that moves you and then promoting that.
Yeah, that's good advice. And I'm reminded, so you sound like a very visual person, and I'm reminded of an artist mentor I talked to on the podcast months ago, maybe a couple of years ago now, but I always remember something he said, because I asked him about something he was constantly saying to his audience, and it was almost like I thought he had a bug up his ass about this particular subject, and he was always ranting about it, and he just said, well, he goes, it's, developing a brand is largely about amplifying your weirdness, right? And so, he explained to me, he did feel that way, but it was also just a matter of trying to really amplify that. And the way you were describing your love of the 60s era and the looks and the dress, and how could you leverage that? It sounds like you, in a visual manner, and maybe in there were other things that you didn't even touch on, but you amplified basically that thing, like you said. It kind of gets you excited. So that makes great sense.
For sure, yeah.
And
that is true. I like that. It is amplifying your weirdness or your uniqueness, even if it's just liking something like an era that's pretty vague, like the 60s. But when you internalize that, it's different in everybody. Mm-hmm. So I like that.
Yeah.
Amplifying your weirdness.
So does your you clearly have an appreciation for rock music. Does it come largely from the 60s, or were there other influences a little closer to your life as a young person that got that in you? And you've mentioned blues as well, and I know you obviously like pop-related music. You've mentioned hip-hop, and I ask about the rock because that's kind of always been my thing all my life. I love rock. I love pop, and I'm actually playing a blues gig tonight. So, but yeah, how did rock come into your life?
I think when I was younger, I was singing country music. And when I was young, I'm talking like 8 years old, I was singing like country. I love country. I was riding horses at the time, and country music is what I loved. But my dad has always been a huge 80s, 90s rock guy. And I love my dad more than anything. So I think me as a little girl would be in the car with my dad, and he'd be playing 80s rock. And it just kind of grew on me. I wanted to be close to my dad, and so I started to love that type of music as well. And I was a huge 80s rock kid in school when I was 10, 12 years old, just all 80s, AC/DC, Def Leppard, all of that was on my playlist on my iPod going to school. So I think a huge part of it was my dad.
That's cool. I like it. Talk to me about being in LA. I think you said Disney kind of found you didn't find you in LA, but you found yourself in LA around the time that you got involved with Disney. How long have you been there? What was the main factor in staying there, and what has it been in your career in terms of how's it helped? How's it helping?
Mm-hmm. So when I first like I said, when I first came here, I was younger. I was in this Disney singing group with this, his name was Jake Short, the Disney star that was on TV, and there was a little singing group we did, and it kind of, flamed out as some singing groups do, especially when everybody's 12, 13 years old. But it was very beneficial in the way that it kind of pushed me directly into the industry. I got an insight that I never had before at that point. And even though at the time I never really resonated with that pop Disney kitschy, thing, I always still wanted to do the rock music and the blues, or just things that I felt resonated true. But I fell in love with LA as soon as I got here. I used to always imagine myself when I was flying from Florida to LA, it was just I could breathe again. Right when I landed in LA, it felt like I have arrived. I'm here. I'm back home. It always felt like home to me. And for the first couple years, from 13 to 17, really, I was going back and Florida as much as I was in LA. So it's really only been the past 3 years where I've kind of been consistently here. And it's home to me. It's to be an artist and to be able to live here is the greatest gift. It's the best community. You walk on every single corner, every single waiter at every single restaurant you go to is an artist or an actor or, a musician. And it's just the whole town is buzzing with this creative energy that is very inspiring as an artist.
I can imagine. In some regards, it seems that if you're not there, you're missing out as a music artist. I know that's not entirely true, but there's certainly a lot going on there. So, and your family's still in Florida, your parents?
Yeah, we're all still. They're still based in Florida, so we're all down in Florida, and then the rest of my family's in Okeechobee. So they're Florida natives.
Tell me about your band, the Zodiac Mafia. Is that something that you formed in LA, or how did they come about?
Yeah, so I enrolled at the Musicians Institute with the goal to form a band. Basically, like 3 months. I'm like, okay, I'm coming to the school. I need to get a band. Like I went in there with that mindset because I've had all of this music for so long, and my producer Mike Krompus recorded everything. He's multi-talented, can record bass, guitar, drums, everything himself. So I never actually played with a live band until 2017, which
Oh,
is
wow.
pretty crazy. But yeah, so I went to the school and I took a class. It was called the Artist Development class, and at the end of 3 months, you had a show. You played at the show at the school, which was like a competition. So my mentor for the Artist Development show, her name is Annika, and she's like, "All right, like you have 2 weeks to get a bassist, a drummer, and a guitarist." And I'm like, "All right, I don't know anybody. I'm pretty shy with going up to people and talking with them, but." MI is so amazing because they have these things called LPWs, which are live performance workshops, where people learn the song and then they all get together the week later and everybody plays it live together for the first time. And so as a student, you can walk into these LPWs and see different players playing. And from there, I think I found my bassist first. I went into another one. I found my drummer. And then my guitarist was like my drummer's friend. So it all just kind of happened at once. And from there, I've had, several different keyboardists and guitarists, but my rhythmic section in my band, my drummer, my bassist has stayed the same since 2017, which is pretty cool. But that school is amazing, just with connecting with other musicians, and everybody comes from different places in the world. Everybody brings, something unique to the table. So my band's been, it's freed me a lot in the way that I write and in the way that I can create, because I write music most of the time with no melody. Like most of the time I won't write anything on piano or guitar. I'll just hum this melody line, and usually sometimes it'll be in this weird diminished thing, or like I'm in a harmonic minor scale, or I'm doing something weird, and I get to take that and sit down with them and they can kind of translate it to paper, which has freed me up in lots of ways. It's really nice.
That's cool. It's a good story, and I could tell you sounded exciting when you were reflecting on it about going to the
Yeah.
school and finding your band. That sounds very cool, and nice to have a consistent rhythm section for all this time. So very nice.
For sure.
I
got a strong rhythmic section.
That's great. I need to check out some of the live videos. It looks like you have some maybe on your YouTube channel, but I was happy to see that you had a band. A lot of artists I talked to, I don't know, they don't have a band, or they kind of sort of have a band, and it seems, for me anyway, a little unique for the artists that I've talked to on here, particularly maybe the female artists. I'm not sure if that's accurate or not, but that you have a band, and it's awesome. I like it.
Mm-hmm.
I had read that you have multiple writing and recording projects all happening right now. Is that still the case?
Yeah, for sure. I have multiple different projects that are kind of in the woodwork. Some of them I don't think I can talk about yet, but they're all going to be releasing and coming out in the next 6 months, which sooner to the date I can kind of spill the beans. But lots of the stuff I recorded in Nashville, I've worked with several writers like Pam Shane, and oh my gosh, I can't even, so many. I worked with 7 different writers on that album, which has been amazing. Gregory Beck, like all of these different people. Andrew Fromm, who did tons of the Backstreet Boys stuff. So there's different writers that I worked with them. But currently I am working with somebody, and we did a duet song together, which should be releasing in the next couple months, which I'm really excited about. He's in a big band, so big rock band. So I'm excited about that.
Oh, that's very cool. I look forward to hearing that. And I don't know if it's already started, but I read in that same instant that you have a tour happening this year. Maybe perhaps the festival we talked about in Okeechobee is part of that. Is that already in motion, or is that about to kick off?
Yeah, that's gonna really kick off. I'm playing. I've got gigs lined up in LA, and then this Okeechobee Fest. I'm playing Madame Siam in LA, Moroccan Lounge in April, and then Okeechobee Fest in March. And then I've got shows lined up for this summer, which I'm going to be putting up on my website and everything up soon. But I'm hoping to get a little West Coast tour in the mix this summer where we hit up, Arizona, Nevada. I'd love to go to Oregon, like all of those different states. So that's happening this summer, which I'm really excited about.
Very cool. A lot of traveling around the country.
Yeah.
I like it.
Yeah, I know.
I love it. Well, Kendall, thank you for spending time with me. This went really fast, partially my own fault and partially the internet, I think, but I appreciate you hanging out with me. I guess I better tell everyone that they can find you and everything you're doing on social media and otherwise at kendallrucks.com, and it's KENDALLRUCKS.com, and I'll have it in the show notes for everyone.
Yes.
Great site, by the way, and you've got a lot of cool stuff out on social too. So
thank you.
I recommend you check her out, all of you listening. And Kendall, yeah, man, I appreciate your time.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
Hey, thanks again for listening. If you are loving the podcast, please visit unstarvingmusician.com/crowd sponsor to learn about the various ways that you can offer your support. And again, if you're a listener, I consider you a supporter, especially if you shared it with a friend. Thank you. Look for show notes and links to most everything mentioned in this episode at unstarvingmusician.com/podcast. Thanks so much for listening. With a whole lot of gratitude, peace, love, and more cowbell.